I spent 8 years as the loyal secretary to the second male lead in a romance novel, and I finally managed to push him and the female lead together. As I watched the heroine gaze at him with devotion, I was about to slip out of the office with a satisfied smile when I suddenly saw the comments floating in the air. The CEO must be losing his mind right now. The secretary he's obsessed with just pushed him toward another woman. Heh heh heh, a 6 feet 5 inches, dark, and domineering CEO versus a sweet, petite secretary. I'm here for the spicy stuff. The boss has his chains all ready. Commencing lockdown countdown, in 10. 10, 9, 8. My hand trembled. A second later, the second male lead's smooth voice came from behind me. Ms. Anderson, could you stay for a moment, please? There's something I need your help with. I've been stuck in this melodramatic, angsty novel for 8 years. I have a great boss. He didn't care that I was inexperienced. He paid for me to learn foreign languages, brought me to high-stakes negotiations, and when things went wrong, he'd gently walk me through what happened. But this wonderful man was just the devoted second male lead in this trashy novel. He was destined to love the heroine his whole life, only to be told, I've only ever thought of you as a brother. Is that fair? No way in hell. The moment I realized my god-tier boss was doomed to a life of unrequited love, I started secretly working to break up the main couple, determined to help him get his happy ending. Then again, with a melodramatic novel like this, I barely had to do anything. The main couple was perfectly capable of destroying their own relationship. For example, the second female lead stumbles and falls. The male lead roars at the female lead, "How could you push her? You vicious woman." The female lead, "I didn't. I wouldn't." The male lead, "It was you. It was you. It was you. I'm going to destroy you, you horrible woman." I peeked out from behind a corner, looking up at the sky, then down at the ground, just to make sure I hadn't stumbled onto the set of a cheap web series. How could human beings be this profoundly stupid? "What are you doing?" A familiar voice. I turned around and met my boss's striking, fox-like eyes. He was dressed in a sharp suit, a light blue tie perfectly knotted at his chest. With his trim waist and long legs, one glance was enough to make your knees go weak. "Not working, just standing around watching the drama. I've been spoiling you too much." He tossed a file into my hands and said coldly, "I want a full analysis of last month's company-wide sales data on my desk in 1 hour." I put on a pained expression. "Sir, an hour is a little tight." His sharp eyes shot over to me. I snapped to attention, my tone instantly changing. "Mission accepted. I guarantee it'll be done." My boss hated the male lead. That was perfectly normal. No devoted second male lead ever likes the main hero. Their relationships were interesting. The female lead and my boss were childhood sweethearts. The male lead was the son of the female lead's housekeeper. After the love-struck heroine fell for him, he was set to inherit her family's company after her father passed away. As a 9-to-5 corporate drone, I just couldn't wrap my head around the thought process of a pampered heiress. Just like I couldn't understand why my boss, who was basically an untouchable saint, would fall for a woman like her. But no matter what, if my boss wanted her, I, his star secretary, would do everything in my power to make it happen. After finishing the report, I went downstairs for lunch. In the bustling cafeteria, that crazy couple was at it again. The female lead accidentally bumps into the second female lead. The male lead instantly explodes, grabbing the female lead by the ear and shouting, "You vicious woman, you did that on purpose." The female lead, with tears in her eyes, looks incredibly wronged. "I didn't, I really didn't," sob sob sob. "Is this girl for real? She's such a doormat. It's making me furious." Hit him. An explosive jerk versus a crybaby heroine. A match made in hell. Just lock them up together and let my boy, the second lead, live his best life alone. I never should have read this old-school angsty novel. My heart actually hurts from the rage, I swear. I ate my lunch while watching the comments, which only I could see, float in mid-air. They appeared randomly, without any real pattern, like a reader comments section, a total mess of opinions. I once thought it was my special power for being transported into this world, but in all these years, the comments have never provided a single piece of useful information. They were just background noise, a way to pass the time. When I finished eating, they were still over there, arguing loudly. The female lead's sobs were pathetic. I clenched my fists. This wasn't right. No one gets to bully my boss's future wife, even if she's a few screws loose. I put down my chopsticks, grabbed my coffee, and marched over, splashing it right in the male lead's face. This is Grant Tower, not your personal playground. You need to learn to show some restraint, Mr. Smith. I pulled the female lead behind me protectively. She was beautiful, with delicate, fair skin. Her thin frame trembled like a butterfly resting on a flower petal. My voice softened involuntarily. Miss Song, don't be afraid. Mr. Grant will protect. Who asked you to butt in? She slapped me hard across the face. Who gave you permission to throw coffee on my husband? Don't you know he's mine? I won't let anyone bully him. With that, she rushed to the male lead's side, tenderly wiping the coffee from his cheek. Honey, it's okay. I'll tell David to fire her later. I'll get revenge for you. The people around us started whispering, enjoying the show. I just stood there, stunned. My cheek was burning. It was painful, and a little humiliating. But more than that, I felt a sense of despair. If this woman became the boss's wife, would I ever have a moment's peace? How could my boss possibly be in love with someone like this? Ms. Anderson. Suddenly, I heard my boss's familiar voice. I looked up. He was standing about 10 feet away, his gaze dark and fixed on me. David. The female lead instantly found her courage. Gripping the male lead's arm, she said loudly, "This secretary of yours is completely out of line. That coffee was hot. What if it had burned Kevin? You have to fire her." Is that so? My boss let out a dry laugh. I thought it was a pretty good throw, myself. He rolled up his sleeves to his elbows, revealing muscular forearms. He strode over to the male lead and kicked him, sending him flying 10 feet away. David. You should be thankful I don't hit women. He shot a cold glance at the female lead. Then he turned, grabbed my wrist, and pulled me away. We left the cafeteria, went upstairs, and returned to the top-floor office. He walked so fast I could barely keep up. I stumbled several times, my ankle throbbing with a dull pain, but I didn't dare make a sound. After 8 years with him, I knew exactly what that smile that wasn't a smile meant. The corners of his lips were turned up, but there wasn't a hint of warmth in his eyes. He was furious. Whenever he got like this, it meant someone was about to have a very bad day. I felt a knot of dread in my stomach and whispered, "Sir, I really have been spoiling you too much." He muttered to himself, gently rubbing my wrist before motioning for me to sit on the sofa. Someone from the secretarial pool had already brought an ice pack. He picked it up, tested the temperature, then knelt down in front of me and pressed it against my swollen cheek. "Hold this." With that, he stood up, walked over to his desk, and pulled a black ruler from a drawer. I shot to my feet, my voice cracking with shock. "Sir." I was transported into this world in my own body. When I first arrived, I had no money and no ID. I was shivering in the dead of winter, wearing only flip-flops and a tank top, huddled outside a closed KFC. It was my boss who found me, took me home, helped me get a legal identity, and gave me a job as his secretary. He treated me like a big brother. In those first few years of work, I was slow on the uptake, clumsy, and always making mistakes. And mistakes came with consequences. Sometimes it was standing in a corner, sometimes it was a rap on the knuckles, and sometimes it was, well, being disciplined like a child when you're in your 20s is always awkward. I'd gotten much better in recent years. I rarely made mistakes and almost never got punished. But now, I quickly reviewed my work from the past 2 days. No errors. Sir, I asked nervously, are you planning to polish the ruler? He looked up at me and curved his lips. What do you think? Okay, I got the message. I slumped back onto the sofa, trying to defend myself. I don't think I did anything wrong. Miss Song's husband was being completely out of line, yelling at her in front of everyone. I was just angry and wanted to help. My boss just grunted. He took a disinfecting wipe from the dispenser on his desk and began to slowly clean the ebony ruler, smoothing away any imperfections. From top to bottom, his long, slender fingers glided over the wood. He hadn't said a single word of reprimand, but I was so tense my back was ramrod straight. Sir, you shouldn't have gotten involved in their business. My boss tapped the ruler against the back of his hand, then gestured for me to hold out my hand, palm up. You are my secretary. You shouldn't waste your energy on the affairs of irrelevant people. A kind heart is a good thing, but it shouldn't be misdirected. He walked over, his fingertips gently stroking my red, cold cheek before finally taking my upturned palm in his. I don't like it when you focus your attention on other people. Do you understand, Ms. Anderson? Honestly, not really. How could helping the future boss's wife be an irrelevant affair? But with his tall frame looming over me, his stern face inches from mine, and the shadow of the black ruler falling across us, my mind went blank. I leaned back into the sofa and nodded numbly. I understand. 30 swats. Remember to count. The edge of the ruler tapped my palm. My boss's voice was cool. A small lesson to teach a larger one. Don't let it happen again. After work, I went home with my boss, checked the menu the cook had prepared, and made sure there was no cilantro or chili peppers. I reminded the staff that spring was coming and they should plant more winter jasmine in the garden. The boss liked that tender shade of yellow. Upstairs, he was already asleep in bed. He had a habit of napping after work to recharge before late-night meetings with the European office. I tiptoed into the bedroom, took off his glasses, loosened his tie, and removed his shoes. I set the AC to a constant 78 degrees and placed a glass of warm water on the nightstand. Just as I was about to leave, he grabbed my wrist. Without opening his eyes, he brushed his thumb over my palm and said in a raspy voice, "Remember to put some ointment on that." Okay. I whispered back, then carefully slipped out of the room. I was expected to be present for the late-night meetings too, which usually meant I'd take a nap to catch up on sleep. But now, I hesitated for a moment, then quietly left the house and hailed a cab to an apartment downtown. For the past 8 years, I'd been living in my boss's villa. It was huge and comfortable, and he never asked me to leave, but I always felt a little uneasy about it. Using my salary and some stock investments, I'd saved up a good amount of money and secretly bought my own place without telling him. It was about 850 square feet, not big, but in the heart of the city where every inch was gold, it was a rare find. I'd decorated it exactly to my taste, and the new paint smell had long since aired out. I took a shower and flopped onto the sofa bed, stretching my limbs out into a starfish and letting out a long, satisfied sigh. As I drifted off, the floating comments appeared again out of nowhere. Baby secretary got her hands swatted, ha ha ha. It's okay, mommy will kiss it better. Kisses make the pain go away. That waist, so trim and pale, panting, I wanna lick it, touch it, sleep with you. Ah, my baby is so sweet and cute. Marry me, don't let that cheap bastard have you. How could that damn bastard bear to hit my precious girl? What were they even talking about? I didn't get it. I yawned lazily. The room was filled with the pleasant scent of fruit-scented aromatherapy. I drifted off into a deep sleep. When I woke up, I groggily checked my phone and saw 8 missed calls from my boss. I jolted upright. The room was warm and cozy, but a cold sweat instantly broke out on my skin. My boss was a good superior, but that didn't mean he was soft. He seemed to have certain hobbies. His methods of punishment were endless, and frankly, he scared me a little. I was usually on edge around him even when I hadn't done anything wrong, let alone a situation like this, disappearing without even asking for leave. I paced around the room, my anxiety mounting with every step. Finally, with a grimace, I called him back. "Sir, a friend invited me out, and my phone was on silent." "I didn't hear it, I didn't mean to." My boss seemed to be typing. The crisp click-clack of the keyboard was intermittent. He didn't sound angry. He sounded surprisingly good-natured as he asked, "Do you need the whole night off?" "Huh? Out with a friend this late at night, must not be just any friend." My boss's voice was gentle. "Ms. Anderson, you're at an age to get married. I understand. Go ahead and spend the night with him. You don't need to come back." "Oh, okay, thank you, sir." Something felt off. His tone was still gentle, but it didn't sound genuinely accepting or permissive. He seemed to have misunderstood something. But I bit my lip and didn't argue. After hanging up, I stood blankly by the window, thinking, maybe I really should find a boyfriend. Find a reasonably suitable person, move out, and slowly detangle my life from my bosses. I was well aware that my current relationship with him was not normal. It was more than a boss and an employee, but it wasn't a romantic partnership either. I flopped back onto the soft sofa bed and buried my face in the covers. I took several deep breaths, reminding myself that I absolutely could not fall for the devoted second male lead. On a typical workday, I'd wake up half an hour before my boss to lay out his suit, tie, and watch, and to check if his shoes were polished. But today, my internal clock woke me at 6:30 a.m. as usual. Looking around my warm, cozy bedroom that was perfectly me, I shook my head, got up, and got ready. It was still early, so on my way to work, I stopped by a flower shop and bought myself 2 bouquets of lilies. I carried the large bunch to my desk and arranged them in a vase, their delicate blossoms opening one by one, filling the air with a sweet scent. "From your boyfriend?" a colleague asked, nudging me playfully. "Why not roses?" I was about to make a joke back when I caught sight of my boss out of the corner of my eye. I immediately stood up straight and greeted him respectfully. He seemed to be in a terrible mood, his eyes frosty. He didn't even glance at me, just strode past and into his office. "Did something happen in the meeting last night?" my colleague asked with a frown. "Why does the boss look so grim?" I shook my head. I had the night off. I don't know anything. Just then, a file from the finance department needed attention. I knocked on the boss's office door. "Enter." He was standing by the floor-to-ceiling window, smoking. Smoke swirled around him, and a few cigarette butts lay scattered at his feet. "Sir." I hesitated, then walked over to open the window. "Smoking is bad for your health. You really should watch." He suddenly grabbed my wrist and pinned me against the window. My hands were forced behind my back, my cheek pressed against the cold glass. Below, the crowds looked like swarming ants. His fingertips slowly traced my back, moving gently downward, to the small of my back, and then, "Sir." Smack. A sharp pain bloomed on my behind. His scorching body pressed against me, his lips so close to my ear I could feel his breath. "Does he know I can do this to you?" he asked in a low, soft voice. "Your boyfriend, does he know that this is the kind of relationship we have?" Snap. It felt like a string in my mind broke. I whirled around, shoved him away with all my might, and staggered back, putting as much distance between us as possible. I was trembling, and tears welled up in my eyes against my will. It shouldn't be like this, it's not. I knew that in my boss's social circle, these kinds of unequal relationships existed. One person willing to give punishment, the other willing to take it. It wasn't my place to judge. But I didn't want to be the one willing to take it. I didn't want to be his plaything, his property, or something worse, a slave. So this whole time, he had seen me as part of that kind of relationship. I couldn't lie to myself anymore. No, no, sir, you can't. Why are you crying? He reached out, gently wiping a tear from the corner of my eye. I'm the one who found you. I gave you your identity. You were always meant to belong to me. I wasn't planning on doing anything, but you had to be so disobedient, dating and planning to marry another man. Is that something you're allowed to do? His fingertips pressed against my lips, rubbing them over and over until they were a swollen, vivid red. Go throw out that pathetic bouquet of flowers. And while you're at it, forget that man, too. Ms. Anderson, you don't have the right to say no. His voice was chillingly clear, his dark eyes locking onto mine like a demon from hell. My face went pale, and I trembled even more violently. My muddled brain could only react instinctively. I slapped his hand away. I struggled to my feet, backing away from him, shaking my head. No, it's not like that. I'm a person, not a cat or dog he owns. I can work hard to repay his kindness, not sell my body to become his toy. I have the right to decide what I want to do with my life. I'm resigning, I won't listen to you, and I don't want to see you ever again. I mumbled, turning to run. He grabbed me in one swift motion. He pulled me into his arms, wrapping them tightly around me and gripping my chin with brutal force. You. David. The female lead's sharp voice cut through the air, filled with disbelief. What are you two doing? The moment he heard the female lead's voice, my boss's body went rigid. The force holding me slackened. He stood up, straightened his tie, and said with a hint of impatience, "What are you doing here? Did that guy kick you out again?" The female lead's face paled for a second before she forced a smile, her voice still full of grievance. I ran away from home. I had nowhere else to go, so I came to find you. Did I interrupt something? She looked at me, trembling on the floor, and tilted her head with an innocent air. Ms. Anderson is very pretty, but it's still working hours. By monopolizing David like this, you're keeping him from his work. Isn't that a little irresponsible? I kept my head down, not saying a word. My limbs were stiff with terror, my mind a complete blank. I shakily climbed to my feet, using the wall for support, and walked out without giving the female lead a second glance. As I left, I heard her complaining to my boss. "See, David? Because you spoil her so much, Ms. Anderson doesn't even respect me. You really can't indulge her like this. A secretary who acts so entitled, it's not like you're going to marry her. How is your future wife supposed to feel?" I staggered back to my desk and sat down. Without a moment's hesitation, I submitted my resignation through the company's online portal. I contacted the housekeeper and asked her to pack up all my things at the villa, then arranged for a moving company to take them to my new apartment. Only after everything was arranged did I slowly slump forward, burying my face in my hands in despair. In the darkness, the dense stream of comments appeared again. What just happened? Why did the screen go black? Secretary baby, what kind of R-rated stuff were you doing with that dark and domineering CEO? Sob, my baby girl's been tainted. Damn that CEO. Is anyone else thinking about how cute the secretary is? Her face all red, her eyes all puffy, makes me want to do things. Dirty, dirty things. Secretary baby's waist is like a willow branch in spring, so slender and soft. God, I just want to touch it, heh heh. The comments were so out of left field that my despair kind of short-circuited. I sat up, wiped my eyes, and shot an annoyed glare at the floating text. I tugged my shirt down firmly, covering the sliver of my waist that had been showing. I knew what internet trolls were like. But I was clearly having a breakdown here. Was it really the time to be horny? The interruption managed to clear my head a little. I rested my chin on my hand and tried to figure out what to do next. Before I could come up with a plan, the female lead walked out of the office and stopped in front of my desk. She asked me in a soft, gentle voice. "Ms. Anderson, I'd like to make a cup of coffee for David. Could you show me to the break room?" Of course. I stood up and led the way. As we walked, she chatted casually. David just loves the coffee I make. He says even though the method is the same, mine has a special aroma. My dad was asking me the other day if I was really going to marry Kevin. He said David is a wonderful man who would treat me well, and that I should think it over carefully. Ms. Anderson, could you give me some advice? Her beautiful eyes curved as she smiled at me, as if she were genuinely asking for my opinion. I was completely bewildered. Advice? What kind of advice? Was I even qualified? Can you main characters please stop dragging a side character like me into your drama? I numbly pushed open the break room door, made an after you gesture, and then stood by the entrance in a daze. Wow, this girl is so two-faced. Is the female lead finally trying to win the second male lead back? Did she finally grow a brain? About time. She must be feeling threatened. Before, she was the only one around him. Now there's a little secretary, so she's getting possessive. On another note, if the female lead gets with the second male lead, what happens to our secretary baby? The comments continued to scroll by at high speed. I watched them blankly while waiting for the female lead to make her coffee. Ms. Anderson. The female lead turned around, her voice gentle. Could you hold this for me? I want to get some sugar. I paused, wanting to tell her that the boss never took sugar in his coffee. But after a moment's hesitation, I said nothing. I stepped forward to take the cup. The second my fingers touched the ceramic, she suddenly let go. She grabbed my arm, shoved me, and then stumbled backward like a delicate flower in the wind, letting out a sharp scream. When she fell, her head hit the corner of the table. Thud. Blood gushed from her forehead, dripping onto the floor and staining her long, smooth hair. I stood there stunned for 2 seconds, then ran out yelling for help and calling an ambulance. I leaned weakly against a colleague, a cold sweat drenching my back. I couldn't understand what the female lead was trying to do. Was it because she couldn't stand how close the boss and I were? But to bleed that much, to get hurt that badly, was it really necessary? There was a large pool of blood on the floor. It was stark, sticky, and terrifying, like a malevolent specter in the dead of night. The fear hit me then, a delayed reaction, crawling up my spine like damp, dark tentacles. My body wouldn't stop shaking. The hallway outside the operating room was cold. I hugged my arms, squatting against the wall, my body trembling uncontrollably as I tried to curl into a ball. My boss stood by a window not far away, smoking. He'd been at it for a while. The smoke billowed around him, drifting over to where I was. Before, I would have gone over and said a few words, the usual platitudes about smoking being bad for his health. But now, forget saying anything. It was best if he didn't even notice me. I coughed a couple of times and curled up even tighter. The male lead, Kevin, hurried over, the second female lead, Jessica, in tow. Jessica was wrapped in a long trench coat, her fair face flushed like a peach blossom, with a lingering hint of satisfaction. The two of them looked like they'd just rolled out of bed. If you want to die, don't take me with you. I have no interest in getting sick at my age. Kevin snatched the cigarette from my boss's hand and stubbed it out on the floor. How is she? My boss shook his head and said dismissively, I don't know. But she won't die. Tough as nails, isn't she? Still kicking after all that. My boss scoffed. The moonlight fell on him, making his slim waist and long legs stand out in the gloomy darkness. His suit trousers clung tightly to his well-defined rear, his straight legs wrapped in the soft fabric. Just his silhouette was enough to set one's imagination running. But that wasn't what caught my attention. The way my boss and Kevin were talking was so strange, their relationship was nothing like I thought it was. Are you okay? Jessica walked over and crouched down beside me, looking at me with concern. Don't worry. Miss Song is used to playing these games. She'll be fine. What do you mean? You don't know? She's used this kind of stunt to drive away 5 stepmothers. Now she's trying to use it on you and me. Falling down, framing people, getting herself all injured, then making a big show of forgiving them. She's been pulling this crap since she was a kid. The only reason it worked is because her dad always coddled her. She thinks she's so clever, but she has no idea her father just plays along because he enjoys spoiling her. And now she's trying it on us. Does she really think everyone's an idiot? She gave a sarcastic laugh. Kevin and I were perfectly happy. We were about to get married, but she had to use her family's power to force her way in and mess everything up. It's disgusting. But she glanced back at my boss thoughtfully. It looks like she's set her sights on Mr. Grant now. You'd better be careful. I just sat there, dumbfounded. My head was a mess. I didn't understand any of it. Wasn't Jessica supposed to be the evil second female lead? What did she mean? Sophia forced her way between her and Kevin. A thought suddenly struck me, and my eyes widened. So, all those times you two fought, the falling, the spilled coffee, she was doing it all on purpose? And that's why Kevin, Mr. Smith, would yell at her? What else? Jessica looked at me, confused. You didn't actually believe her innocent act, did you? I silently let go of my knees and retreated into myself. I thought Jessica was the other woman, but it turns out she was the original girlfriend. I thought Kevin was an abusive hothead, but he was just being pushed to his wit's end by a manipulative psycho. Am I even in the right book anymore? This can't be fanfiction, can it? I listlessly ran a hand through my hair. My boss had finished talking with Kevin and was walking over, his aura heavy. His shiny leather shoes came into view, and for some reason, they reminded me of that sandalwood ruler striking my palm. I silently lowered my head even further. You're the one who threw coffee in my face last time, right? Kevin looked at me teasingly. Ms. Anderson, you need to be a better judge of character. Don't get played and then help them count the money. That's enough. It's not your place to lecture her. My boss bent down and touched my cold cheek. Let's go. I'm taking you home. No. I shook my head, shrinking back even more. The female lead is a piece of work. And so are you. Seeing my resistance, my boss's expression darkened. He glanced at Kevin, who just chuckled and tactfully led Jessica away. I saw your resignation request. I'm not approving it. I don't need your approval. In 1 month, my employment will terminate automatically. Does it have to be like this? My boss crouched down, his voice filled with frustration. After all our years together, does it really have to come to this? All our years together. My eyes suddenly turned red. What am I to you, really? I stared at him, demanding an answer. When you ask me to stay, what do you see me as? A lover? A plaything? Or just an obedient, useful secretary you don't want to lose? All these years, the things you've done, making me live with you, those punishments, is that really what a secretary is supposed to do? Of course not. No secretary would ever go that far. I had been playing dumb for so many years, and I had finally reached the point where I couldn't pretend anymore. My boss was taken aback, momentarily speechless at the anger in my eyes. His hand caressed my hair, and after a long hesitation, he let out a low sigh. I'm sorry. I didn't realize you were so bothered by it. If you... Mr. Song. Watch your step. The young miss will be fine. A commotion of footsteps suddenly echoed down the hallway. A half-gray-haired man with a beer belly, around 50 years old, rushed over with a large entourage. Who hurt my precious daughter? My boss's expression turned icy. He stood up, took a step forward, and subtly shielded me behind him. Mr. Song. He said politely, Miss Song is still in surgery. I've already called the police and submitted the surveillance footage from the break room. The authorities will determine what happened. This Mr. Song was the female lead's father. She was his only child, and he spoiled her to the bone, without any limits. Hearing my boss's words, he sneered. Whatever the truth is, my daughter is in surgery right now, life and death uncertain. If I break one of her legs, that's not going too far, is it? My boss let out a sharp, derisive laugh. He turned, pulled me up from the floor, and wrapped an arm around my waist, holding me against his chest. The grip was tight, forcing me so close I could hear his heartbeat against my ear. It was an overwhelmingly protective gesture. She is my person. Even if she were at fault, it wouldn't be your place to deal with her. Besides, you know Miss Song's character better than I do. Let's not make this embarrassing for everyone. My boss's almost direct accusation made the Song family's faces darken. Mr. Song snorted, sat down on the bench surrounded by his men, and let his venomous gaze sweep over me critically before scoffing. She's not half as beautiful as my daughter, and she has no family fortune. David, my boy, you need to think this through. She's my only daughter. When I'm gone, my entire fortune goes to my daughter and son-in-law. Are you sure you want to go against me for her? My boss just smiled faintly. To each their own. You needn't worry yourself, Mr. Song. The hospital hallway was cold. My boss took off his suit jacket, wrapped it around me, and guided me to a seat on the bench. He started tapping on his phone with his other hand, seemingly rushing something. The pleasant scent of sandalwood filled my nostrils. I sniffled and quietly lowered my head. Tired? He turned off his phone and looked at me. If you're tired, sleep for a bit. We'll leave as soon as the surgery is over. I shook my head gently. I'm okay. I turned to look at the glaring red light above the operating room door and sighed silently. When the female lead was wheeled out of the operating room, the entire Song clan swarmed forward to see her. My boss also stood up eagerly, but instead of joining them, he seized the opportunity, grabbed my hand, and pulled me quickly toward the exit. Once we were finally in the elevator, he let out a heavy sigh of relief. He rubbed my wrist with his fingertips and began issuing orders in a calm, methodical voice. Contact the London office now. We're flying out tomorrow. The Songs have dirty hands, we need to lie low for a while. Sir. Ms. Anderson, it's over. Don't bring it up again. He squeezed my wrist firmly. Right now, you are just my secretary. Complete the tasks I assign you, and don't ask too many questions. There wasn't actually much going on at the overseas office. My boss did a quick inspection tour, sat in on a few meetings, and then started making plans with his friends here. There were his old college classmates, childhood friends, and some business partners he got along with, all sons of wealthy, powerful families. They had chartered a luxury yacht and invited him to join them. What a rare honor to have the great Mr. Grant grace us with his presence. A friend sat down next to him, slinging an arm over his shoulder teasingly. I thought you always hated these chaotic gatherings. My boss just smiled and whispered something to the guy next to him. The man's eyes widened in surprise, and he shot me a playful, knowing look. I felt a bit awkward and turned to watch the violinist on stage. I had once crammed a lot of knowledge about high art, so I knew the man playing was a world-renowned artist, famous since his youth. And yet, among these young heirs, he was merely someone who could be invited. Almost no one in the room was actually listening to his performance, they were all busy networking or chatting. When the piece ended, he was replaced by a popular all-female dance troupe. Their fiery, revealing moves were far more effective at capturing the attention of the common man than the violin had been. After the dance, a man in a traditional long gown came on stage and began to sing into a microphone. I paused, feeling like something was off. This man was a massively popular singer back home. His music sold like crazy, and his concert tickets were impossible to get. I often listened to his songs to pass the time. I wasn't surprised to see him here, but a violinist, a dance troupe, a traditional style pop singer, and who knows what else was lined up. Wasn't this a bit much for a casual party? It wasn't that they couldn't afford it, but it seemed unnecessary for a simple get-together. Celebrities are still celebrities, they wouldn't perform like this without a good reason. Could this party have another purpose? I glanced around and saw my boss leaning back on the sofa, a cigarette between his fingers, watching a group of people play cards with a detached expression. He looked up, saw me, and crooked a finger, mouthing the words. "Come here." I got up and walked over. "Sir. Want to play?" He gestured to the card table. "Go on, give it a try. If you lose, it's on me." "Ooh, Mr. Grant is feeling generous." The other guys at the table started teasing. "Go on, Ms. Anderson. Your boss has money to burn. Don't worry about his wallet." TSK, David. Should we let her win or not? Let her win? What's that supposed to mean? You looking down on Mr. Grant? He's hosting tonight, don't embarrass him. Come on, Ms. Anderson, sit right here. I froze, awkwardly leaning closer to my boss and pleading, "Sir." I didn't understand why he wanted me to play. He had always forbidden me from participating in any form of gambling. Once, at a dinner party, I couldn't get out of it and was roped into a game of mahjong. That night, he held my hand and smacked my palm until it was swollen, then made me write a 3,000-word apology letter promising I would never touch anything like it again. "It's just one round. It's fine." He flicked the ash from his cigarette, his expression hidden in the shadows, impossible to read. "Fine, I'll play with you." Seeing me still standing there, he stood up, stubbed out his cigarette, and put an arm around my waist, guiding me to a seat at the table. He leaned over me, completely enveloping me, and took my hand in his, guiding it to feel the cards. His tie dangled down, brushing against my ear. His soft breathing was right above my head, and I could even hear the sound of him swallowing. The whole time, my mind was a fog. I was so dazed I could barely even see the cards. "We won." My boss's voice was tinged with a husky laugh. "Ms. Anderson, why don't you calculate how much we won?" I snapped back to reality, pulled my hand out from under his, and frantically wiped it on my dress. This was too strange. While our relationship had always been complicated, he'd never been this physically close in public before. It was almost as if he was trying to. Talking about money is so boring. Ms. Anderson is a woman of elegance. We can't tarnish her with something so vulgar. One of the young men pushed his cards away and glanced at the bodyguard behind him, who promptly presented a box. "I picked these up in South Africa. They're just some smaller diamonds, nothing too valuable. A little something for Ms. Anderson to play with." He looked at me with a meaningful smile. "Of course, don't forget to put in a good word for me with Mr. Grant. My deepest thanks, Ms. Anderson." I didn't dare move. My boss took the box directly and placed it in my lap for me to hold. The rest of the night was mostly a blur of watching these rich kids go wild. They splashed around bottles of wine that cost tens of thousands of dollars, made out with their dates, and some even. Usually, my boss would have taken me away by this point. I'd never seen anything like it. I huddled in his arms, trembling, not daring to open my eyes. "Scared?" My boss gently swirled the wine in his glass. "I used to think it was better for you to be innocent, so I never exposed you to this. But I never imagined you'd be so easily fooled by someone else. It's been so long. Aren't you going to call your boyfriend?" My boss let out a small laugh. "I've taken you to negotiate billion-dollar deals, to the centers of power, and shown you the towering walls between social classes. I personally molded you into my ideal woman, and you go and find a boyfriend who sells real estate. Ms. Anderson, are you trying to humiliate me, or yourself?" My boss's voice was tight with suppressed anger. But I was just completely confused. A boyfriend who sells real estate? It couldn't be. Then I suddenly remembered something. I had been so busy that I'd asked the young real estate agent who showed me my new apartment to oversee the renovations. He was a recent college grad with 2 cute dimples, and he'd smiled and told me this was his first ever sale, so he'd make sure to get it right. I'd told him to just come to the office if he needed me, and I'd even bought him lunch downstairs. It had only happened 3 or 4 times, but my boss must have seen us and gotten the wrong idea. Finally understanding where this boyfriend came from, I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Sir, actually, I break up with him." My boss turned to look at me, his eyes filled with an unshakable resolve. Ms. Anderson, I'll say this one last time. Break up with him, and I can pretend none of this ever happened. I pressed my lips together. Sir, You can't bear to? He suddenly smashed his wine glass. He stood up, loomed over me, and pressed his hands on my shoulders, his dark eyes locking with mine, blazing with a storm of repressed fury. What is it you can't bear to part with? The celebrities here tonight? He'll never meet them in his entire life. The wine they're drinking? He'll never be able to afford it. Even that box of diamonds in your lap, a single one of those is more than he could ever hope to attain. Did I raise you for all these years just so you could debase yourself like this? He grabbed my hand, his wrist flicking as he tapped my pale palm, just like he had in countless punishments before. Because you don't like it, I won't use those methods on you anymore. But Ms. Anderson, you need to understand that I have a bad temper and very limited patience. He gently stroked my cheek. Don't test my conscience. My boss was furious. But strangely, I felt a sense of calm wash over me. I had a feeling my boss liked me, just a little. Whether he saw me as a plaything, a lover, or a wife, he was jealous of a non-existent boyfriend. But had he realized it himself? Or maybe he had, but since he had no intention of marrying me, he just kept things in this ambiguous state. I didn't know. But I knew one thing for sure, this was my chance. The first one to show fear is the one who loses. That was a negotiation tactic my boss had taught me. Now that I sensed his feelings, I had leverage. Whether it was for my future status in the family or the severance package I could get if I was fired, things couldn't get any worse. I had to at least take this one gamble. My fingertips trembled for a second. I looked down and said in a soft voice. But I want to get married, sir. I'm 29. I'm not getting any younger. He may not be as rich as you, but he's very good to me. I've saved a lot of money over the years. It's enough for us to live on. I hesitated for a moment, then decided to go all in. We've already discussed it. After I get back from this trip, I'm going to marry him. We'll save you a seat at the head table at the reception. We'd love for you to be there. I secretly watched his expression. I saw it shift from sullen to stunned, then to disbelief, and finally to the dark, venomous look of a predator. His eyes narrowed, and I could almost hear him grinding his teeth. The head table? He slowly chewed on those words, then suddenly laughed. Great. I'll be waiting. With that, he stood up and straightened his tie. He signaled for a waiter to open a bottle of red wine, poured the scarlet liquid into a glass, and downed it in one gulp. He was completely calm. So calm it was unnatural. I quietly scooted a little farther away. My phone suddenly rang. I took the call in a corner, a little surprised. It was the female lead. She was crying, looking for my boss, saying she was ready to marry him. I never got involved in the drama between my boss and the female lead. I quietly tidied up the office, made tea for my boss, and watched as the female lead gazed at him adoringly. I was about to make an awkward exit when the long-dormant comments suddenly reappeared at the worst possible time. The CEO must be losing his mind right now. The secretary he's obsessed with is getting married, and she's even pushing him toward another woman. Heh heh heh, a 6 feet 5 inches, dark, and domineering CEO versus a sweet, petite secretary. I'm here for the spicy stuff. The boss has his golden cage all ready. Commencing lockdown countdown, in 10. 10, 9, 8. I froze. While I usually dismissed the comments as entertainment, I knew they were mostly reactions to things that were actually happening. But now, I furrowed my brow and tried to continue toward the door, but my boss's smooth voice stopped me. Ms. Anderson, please stay. He tapped the desk. You can be present for the entirety of my meeting with Miss Song. I was stunned. Under the female lead's fiery glare, I stiffly walked over to the sofa and sat down, fiddling with my teacup, feeling completely on edge. The female lead shot me a look before turning to my boss with a delicate, fragile air. David, my father said that if you marry me and I give birth to an heir, the entire Song family fortune will be yours. I know that men in your position often have a few confidants. It's normal. I don't mind. She glanced at me and added, and Ms. Anderson, don't worry. I won't hold a grudge about you pushing me before. We can all be sisters and get along just fine. Wow, she's in full head wife mode. My God, is this still the 21st century? Sisters? Ha 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 ha, I'm cackling. Does this girl have any self-awareness at all? It's so painful when the CEO doesn't say anything. Can he just kick her out already? She's so annoying. When are we gonna fast forward to the imprisonment play? My time is precious, I'm not here to watch you all bicker. And why do you think I would marry you? My boss asked, a flicker of amusement in his eyes. Miss Song, the Song family fortune is indeed a very large prize that everyone wants. But the price has to be right. Frankly, the Song family isn't worth the cost of marrying you. Just because your father spoils you doesn't mean the rest of the world has to. Don't come looking for me again. I'm not going to marry you. Also. My boss sighed. Stop acting like a lunatic all day, causing trouble. Maybe try going back to school. With that, my boss called security and had them escort the female lead out. David, how could you do this to me, David? The female lead stood there in a daze, her eyes misty with tears as she looked at him pitifully. My boss rubbed his forehead and signaled for security to hurry up and get her out. Once the office was finally quiet, he leaned back in his chair, pressing his temples wearily. I stood up. Sir, I'll go now. Not yet. Finish your tea first. My boss gestured to the cup in front of me. His gaze was deep, a faint, unreadable smile playing on his lips. Thinking about the comments from just now, I had a very bad feeling. Sir. Drink it. His eyes were flat. Don't make me say it a second time. I had no choice but to pick up the cup. I took a small sip and immediately recognized the familiar, slightly bitter taste. It was the sleeping pills I used to take. I often took them when I was too stressed from work to sleep. My boss knew. I looked up. He was smiling at me, his fingertips tapping idly on the desk. I took a deep breath, clenched my jaw, and downed the tea in one go. If you're tired, go sleep in the break room. There's a bed in there, my boss said considerately. I had imagined the scene I'd wake up to would be twisted. I just hadn't imagined it would be this over the top. A large, round, golden cage, like a super-sized bird cage. I had been changed into a different outfit, delicate chain studded with glittering diamonds, leaving me practically naked as I curled up on one side of the cage. The room was climate-controlled, not cold, actually quite comfortable. I just had a massive headache. The comments can't see this, right? The door opened, and my boss walked in carrying a glass of milk. He had changed into casual clothes, the soft cotton fabric clinging to his frame and making his whole demeanor seem gentler. He came in, touched my forehead to check for a fever, and then, satisfied, gave me a kiss. He smiled. You don't look surprised at all. You never intended to hide it from me, did you? I mumbled. You even used the brand of sleeping pills I always take. You wanted me to walk into this cage willingly. He laughed, clearly in a good mood. His fingertips toyed with the chain around my neck as he asked in a husky voice, "Do you like it? Do I have the right to say no?" I really didn't get it. Sir, my boyfriend. You'd best not bring that up when I'm in a good mood. My boss pecked my lips like he was kissing a small animal. When you get out of here, we'll get married. As for your boyfriend. My boss smiled. He's already taken $50 million and left Chicago. You'll never see him again. 50 million, what the hell? My eyes went wide. Sir. He suddenly pushed me down onto the plush carpet. He spread my legs, pinning me down, his body pressing tightly against my stomach as his lips roamed my neck and chest. "You're mine. The only thing in this world that truly belongs to me. I brought you home, gave you an identity, and put you in a position of power, not so you could run off with some other man and make me angry. You can only be mine. Married or not, it's all the same. You don't have a choice." He kissed my chest intimately, even nipping at the skin. His lips moved slowly downward, over my stomach, and then between my legs. "Sir." A soft tongue began to slowly lick at me. He came back up, licked his lips, his eyes glinting with a strange light. "I told you, when you get out of here, we'll get married." He pressed down on my lower stomach methodically. "But whether you get out or not, that depends on you." In that moment, looking into his excited, bloodshot eyes, I suspected I might die in here. Those 3 days and 3 nights are something I'd rather not recall. Let's just say, marrying into wealth comes with a price. He carried me out, cleaned me up, and then arranged for his assistant to start preparing for the wedding, all while in an exceptionally good mood. I sat on the bed wrapped in a blanket, feeling a bit dazed. Did I win the gamble? Getting married seemed like a win, but it didn't feel like a normal marriage. Something was off. I stole a glance at my boss. He was sitting on the sofa by the bed, reading a document. His gold-rimmed glasses gave him the look of a handsome villain, a polished, gentle facade for the outside world. "What's wrong? Does your back still hurt?" My boss came over, his large hands kneading my lower back and stomach. "Have some soup in a bit. It'll make you feel better." "Sir, are you really going to marry me?" I asked in a small voice. "Why so suddenly?" "Marriage is irrelevant to me. A little red booklet with no real binding power means nothing." He said dismissively, "But you wanted it, so I'm giving it to you. It'll save you from being tricked by some other stray, getting eaten alive and then helping them count the change." I was speechless. His view of marriage was clearly different from mine. Are all rich people like this? My mind raced with scattered thoughts, and I fell silent. Life after that wasn't much different from before. Except now I had moved into my boss's room. As he kissed me fiercely, I'd have the hazy thought that I'd basically just signed myself up for a permanent night shift. The day we got the marriage certificates, my boss stared at the 2 red booklets, his aura heavy and dark. Before I could even get a good look, he snatched them, ripped them in half with a sharp tearing sound, and threw them in the trash. "Sir, we're never getting divorced anyway. These are useless." He pulled me into his arms, sat me on his lap, and buried his face in my neck, taking a long, deep breath. His expression softened slightly. "You're mine," he repeated, "for the rest of your life." I wrapped my arms around his head, tilting my own back as he licked my neck. His defenses were so high. Even after 8 years, I could only see the barest corner of his true self. I stopped trying to understand him. Things were fine just the way they were. Everything changed one day about a month later. I was reviewing data with the head of the finance department when I saw the female lead appear at the elevators. She was supporting an elegant, dignified woman, patiently chatting with her and laughing from time to time. Behind them, a security guard followed, looking troubled. He caught my eye and gestured helplessly. I walked over. "The boss said Miss Song isn't allowed here, but she said the older woman with her is the boss's mother, Ms. Anderson. What do we do? Will the boss be mad at us?" The boss's mother? I froze, my first thought being, my boss's mother is still alive? Why haven't I seen her once in 8 years? I've never even heard him mention her. I calmed the guard down and told him to wait outside the office. The female lead and the woman had already gone inside. The office was soundproof, so I couldn't hear anything. I tried to focus on my work, but my mind was elsewhere. A short while later, the office door was thrown open with a loud bang. I hurried inside. I saw my boss standing behind his desk, his eyes bloodshot, his fists clenched so tightly his body was trembling with rage. "You have no right to talk about my father." He spat at the woman. If it wasn't for your lover, he never would have had his car tampered with. He never would have died without a body to bury. What happened back then was a tragedy, and I regret it deeply. But you haven't contacted me in all these years. Can't you let go of your anger? The woman said plaintively. You are my only son. Of course I want what's best for you. Miss Song is gentle and kind. She is the right match for you. You mustn't let someone else lead you astray. Get out. My boss swept everything off his desk, roaring like a caged animal. Right now. Immediately. Get out. I quickly signaled for the guards to escort them away. The female lead was completely terrified, trembling as she stared at this version of her childhood friend, so different from the gentle, caring man she thought she knew. She bolted without waiting for the guards to touch her. The mother, though reluctant, turned to leave. She shot me a look as she went, her expression unreadable. The office door closed again. I went to my boss's side and poured him a cup of hot tea. Sir. He suddenly grabbed me, pulled me onto his lap, and buried his head in my shoulder, his body shaking uncontrollably. I had never seen him so undone. I carefully placed my hands on his shoulders, patting him soothingly, like comforting a small child. My shoulder started to feel damp. I froze for a second before I realized. He was crying. When my father's accident happened, I was in the car with him. He lifted me out with his own hands, pushed me far away, but he couldn't get out himself. His body trembled even more violently as he mumbled, almost delirious, I hate her. Women are all the same. I didn't say anything. The silence stretched on, and he gradually came back to himself. He began to frantically backtrack. You're different. You're my possession. You belong only to me. Just me. As he spoke, he hugged me tighter and tighter, as if trying to absorb me into his own body. I silently let him hold me, gently kissing his forehead. When my boss's mother sought me out, the first thing she said was, he will never respect you. He's just like his father. They're used to being on top, looking down on ordinary people like ants. She took a sip of her tea and said softly, he and that Song girl are a perfect match. Two disasters together, where they can't bother anyone else. I was stunned. Ma'am, how can you say that about him? Would you love a child you were forced to have? She asked with a small smile. Her face, though marked by time, was still beautiful. Unfortunately, I don't. He and his father are the same. They're used to force, to possession. They never think from a normal person's perspective. If you stay with him, sooner or later, you'll end up just like me. You'll find it unbearable, and you'll cheat. Unless. She seemed to have a thought and smiled slightly. Unless, of course, you're a masochist. I couldn't help but choke on my tea, coughing for a few moments, feeling inexplicably awkward. Is there anything else? She shook her head. She took a jade green bracelet from her wrist and gave it to me. This is the Grant family heirloom, passed down to the daughters-in-law. I'll give it to you now. Don't let him see it. He hates anything I've worn. He'll definitely smash it. Finally, she smiled at me and said, good luck. The green bracelet was warm in my hand, carrying the faint scent of rose perfume. I examined it over and over, and finally, I let out a low sigh. At least, I told myself, he only has me.